Hi everybody, Sarah Tessner here. Just wanted to talk to you a little bit today about the embalming process and what is entailed in it. Embalming is a very interesting process and people usually have a lot of questions about it, so that's why I decided to cover that today. The definition of embalming is to chemically treat a deceased human being for disinfection, temporary preservation, and also restoration to a more natural, lifelike appearance. Disinfection means to reduce the number of or inhibit the growth of microorganisms that could possibly cause disease in living human beings and also promote decomposition in deceased human beings. Temporary preservation usually means just long enough to get through a public visitation, a public funeral, and a burial. It's not a permanent process like people seem to think it is, but it can last up to decades. Also, restoration to restore to a more natural, lifelike appearance in cases of when people have been sick or there has been trauma, then we will restore those people's features to be more to like they were when they were living. The history of embalming actually started with ancient Egyptians. They kind of trademarked the process, if you will, and they had different stages of embalming for different people in social classes. So Americans really caught on to embalming during the Civil War when people would pass away, or the soldiers would pass away from home, and they would actually chemically treat them on the battlefield and ship them back home so their family could see them again and they could provide them with a proper burial. So we'll go ahead and get started. The first thing that we do before we actually embalm a deceased human being is we clean them and disinfect all surfaces and orifices of their body. That includes their mouth, eyes, nose, ears, genitalia, rectum, anus, anywhere that could have or promote the growth of microorganisms or germs that could promote decomposition or foul odors. So that's where we start. We spray down the entire body with a disinfectant and bathe with warm water. After bathing, we would typically shave a male if he needed to be shaved. Then we would go along with setting the features. What setting the features means is to set the features of the face to a more lifelike appearance, like we would use eye caps under the eyelids to make them more round. Also, we would fill out the mouth and close it. That would, where people's jaws may be sunken in, it would fill them out to be more like they were when they were living. We would also position the body, which means to elongate the legs, also to cross the hands over the abdomen, like this, and then also to tilt the head about 15 degrees to the right. And so that's positioning the body and setting the features. After that, we would prepare our work area and the solution that we plan to use for embalming the body. We would gather our tools, which would be, this is a needle injector that is used to close the mouth. This is the scalpel that we would use to make our incisions. These are spring forceps, which we use to stick into the jugular vein to promote drainage of the blood from the venous system. Arterial tubes on this side that would go into the carotid artery to inject the arterial solution, and these are the forceps that are used to keep those tubes into place. And then also we would use string and aneurysm hooks, which are these hooks right here. Those are used to actually pull up the carotid artery and the jugular vein once we make our incisions. Okay, so prior to beginning the embalming process, we would perform what's called a case analysis, when we would really observe the body and pay attention to any special needs that it may have, like any open sores or any type of conditions, like if they're really emaciated, which means they've lost pretty much all moisture content in their skin and they've kind of wasted away to a skeleton type figure. Also, if they have a lot of fluid already inside of their body, that's another situation like edema. So these are some of the embalming fluids that can be used. There are many different types of fluids depending on the case itself. So once we figured out what arterial solution that we need, we would pick out the fluids, and then we would mix them in the embalming machine, which that's this right here. Oops, can you see that? So that's the embalming machine. Once we're ready to begin the injection, we would make an incision right along the clavicle on the right side, and then we would use those aneurysm hooks that I showed you to raise and ligate or tie off the right carotid artery and also the right jugular vein. And this is a picture of your arterial system and your venous system. Right here is your right carotid artery. Here is your right jugular vein. The carotid artery is used for injection of arterial solution. The right vein, is used for drainage of blood and lymph from the body system that's already present. So that's just to give you an idea of the circulatory system that we use for injection. So once we have the actual arteries and vessels tied and ready to go, we will test the pressure and rate of flow on our machines, and then we will cut a small incision into the vein and artery that we've already raised. The cannula that I showed you is attached to the embalming machine with a hose, and then that goes into the artery. The spring forceps that I showed you actually go into the vein. When we begin injections, sometimes there's an immediate difference. Sometimes it takes a little bit for the solution to actually start circulating. Typically, the way the solution goes is usually a half gallon to 1 gallon per 50 pounds of body weight, but this can change depending on the case. Drainage should begin almost immediately. If it doesn't, that means that you have some kind of blockage that you'll have to help take care of. You should start to see the superficial veins, like in the hands and then in the arms and toes and feet, actually start to dilate as if they have blood running through them. Once that happens, you know that you're starting to get diffusion and distribution of the fluid around the body. That should start pushing the blood out into the vein to drain outside of the body. As you're going through with your injection, you want to keep a constant eye on all parts of the body to ensure that distribution, and also to ensure that you don't have any blockages, or make sure that every part is getting fluid like it's supposed to. You want to massage areas, especially like fingers and toes, to maintain that distribution, and also manipulate like the legs and arms and raise them up above the heart level to promote the drainage of the blood from the body systems. Let's see, after you finish the injection and you're comfortable with the fact that you think all body parts have received adequate distribution, then what you go through with is cavity embalming. That's when you take a trocar. Let me show you a picture of that. This is a trocar, and this tool is used to actually aspirate the cavities of the body, such as the thoracic cavity, which is your chest cavity, and also your abdominal and pelvic areas. What that does is you go close to the belly button and insert that into the abdomen, and at that point that will suction out any bodily fluids that you have left in those cavities. And then following the aspiration part, you will inject very strong cavity fluid into those following cavities. And what that does is that prevents any decomposition, which those systems are usually the first to break down, so that will help prevent decomposition in those areas of the body. After you finish with that, you would sew up all of your incisions, which includes the abdomen where you injected the trocar, and also along the clavicle. You would stitch those areas up with a needle and string. Then you would proceed to bathe the body and make sure that the body is positioned still like you would want it, like I said, with the head 15 degrees to the right, legs straight down, and the hands crossed over each other. You would apply what they call massage cream to the face, which actually retains moisture and keeps the body from dehydrating. You would cover the body with a sheet, and you're done with the process. You would clean up your area and all of the tools that you used at that point. So embalming, like I said, is a very complex process. I just kind of went over the basics of it. There's a lot more that goes into it once you actually get into the business and see all of the things that can happen with different cases, like trauma cases, or like I said, edematous cases or emaciated cases. So it just really depends on the deceased person and